Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Old, Disrespectful, and Ignorant. Wow, that's pretty bold, Nicole. I hope you know what you're doing when you have those types of messages. Well, I do. Because you see, the enemy wants us to be ignorant. He wants us to be disrespectful. And he wants us to focus in on the fact that we're getting older. And then if I'm focused on the fact that I'm getting older and I don't like the aging process, then I'm going to be depressed, disturbed. And for some of you all, you know the rest. Old, disrespectful, and ignorant. We got some individuals that attend churches that are like this. We have some people at the workplace. We got some folks at those family events. And they want respect, but yet they're not willing to give respect. They want to appear like they're wise and they're knowledgeable and all of this good stuff. But you sit down long enough with some individuals and you can listen to the ignorance that drips off their lips. Now, God doesn't want us to be ignorant, and he doesn't want us to be unkind and impolite, and he doesn't call us to a lifestyle of thinking that because we're older, that we can say and we can do pretty much anything. Okay. But we have some individuals that because for so long they have considered themselves to be their own God, they will act in ways that do nothing more than cause divisiveness, cause people to become distant from them, cause others to not even want to think about what they just told us, to not even want to walk with the Lord, because after you've been in a room with somebody who wants you to respect them, worship them, honor them, follow their instruction, and all of these things that go against the word of the Lord, you are not going to want to just do what it is that God has called you to do, especially if you esteem that person much. And I talked about on esteeming abusers, because see, abusive, manipulative types of people, what they'll do is they will use the disrespect, the ignorance, and some of the other stuff that's going on with them in such a way to appear like they're respectful and they're knowledgeable and they're wise, but we know something else. But if you are worried or fearful or you feel some kind of way around that particular adult, then you just might go along with pretty much anything that they say because you call yourself keeping the peace. Well, I'll tell you that when you keep the peace, you also end up putting yourself on a straight path to hell, because you see, the demonic wants the Christian to shut up. And so the demonic will say things like, okay, watch it now. Don't you say this. Don't you say that. I'm just speaking truth here. I don't care what you're trying to do. You just better shut your mouth, because you don't know who you talking to. And I've been on this planet for 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years. And you don't tell me what to do. You hear me? And so what do? Some of these adults who are fearful of that elder, they're going to shut their mouths. And they're going to go ahead and do whatever they told them to do, even if it's unrighteous, because, well, you know, that's my mother, that's my father, that's my sister, my brother, and they've been there for me and all that. Well, how long do you have to keep working? And I've said this in other audio. How long do you have to keep working and proving yourself and feeling obligated to this individual? Don't you come to a place where you just say, okay, I've done enough, and now I'm on a mission from God, and I appreciate all that you've done. And I'm sure that you'll get even more repayment from others. But right now, this is what God has me on. But some folks is too fearful, too worried, always thinking they're going to need someone. They don't step out on faith. If I gotta be homeless, or if I gotta go through a whole lot of stuff, okay, no, when I know that all I gotta do is call up so and so. But you gotta deal with their disrespect. So you got to deal with their ignorance. I don't care. Okay. And it rubs off over time. Then you start listening to that young person's conversation, and it's disrespectful just like the elder, and it's ignorant just like the elder. You're supposed to have a gentle and quiet spirit. At least that's what the Bible tells us, right? But some of these elders, they may look like they're gentle and quiet, but once again, you spend time with them, you find out they're not so gentle and they're not so quiet. And because of all of what they've gone through, and they have chosen not to resolve some issues, remain stubborn, remain unforgiving, and so forth, they are not nice people. And then on top of that, if you got health ailments and you got all this negative stuff going on with you, then you are not going to be the best person to be around. Okay. And for some individuals who are 30 plus now, but you're headed toward that grumpy old man, grumpy old woman, lifestyle syndrome, whatever you want to call it, sooner rather than later because of the company that you keep. And the Bible warns about being around unrighteous, ungodly individuals. The Bible tells us that we are to separate ourselves. We are not supposed to be sitting up there breaking bread with people who are children of darkness. God loves us so much that he wants to keep us out of the arguments. He wants to keep us up out of the backbiting, the gossip, the lying, the plans of the enemy. But if I'm sitting among a bunch of people who are folks who want to be respected, yet they don't know how to respect others, some of that negativity and weirdness and whatever else they got going on is going to influence me in some way. And then if I bring my children around individuals like this, now they're battling up against that as well. Mom, why is so-and-so acting like that? Why is this person treating me this way? Some of our elders, let's just be honest, they don't like children. They don't like young people. They don't. They eye roll, they deep sigh, they're impatient, they're angry, they lose it over the littlest of things. This one didn't put my stuff back right. This one didn't clean up. This one, I'm not having her over here if she can't do this and do that. Well, this one has a disability. Well, that's all the more reason not to bring this child over, because I ain't got no patience for no slow kids. Oh, yeah. We got some people. And they claim to be believers. They claim to be loving. They claim that they're so nice and so considerate and this, that, and the other. But when you sit down, as I said before, long enough with them, you see that fruit on their tree and it is just as rotten and spoiled. And meanwhile, they talking about what's that smell? Whatever that smell might be in the atmosphere from one of them kids. And meanwhile, they're stinking up the atmosphere with all of their negativity and nastiness. I know that this message rubs some people the wrong way because I can feel it in the spirit, and they'll be the first ones to put a thumbs down, or they'll leave a negative comment or whatever else, or they'll try to turn the tables and say, what about you and all that? Look, when truth is being given, you have one of two choices. You can either listen or you can go on about your business. But what you can't do is build up a argument against something that you know is very true to who you are or to someone that you love so dearly. Because when it's looking you in the face, and that's what God challenges us to do in many of these audios, he just wants us to look at the truth for what it is. He also warns us of what is ahead if we continue to be around certain individuals, or we keep on pushing their agendas and their interests and their preferences and their traditions, that this is what's going to happen. And we don't want that, right? So you see it for what it is and you check yourself on it. Am I that one that's being very impatient, ignorant, disrespectful, and nasty toward the young people? But yet I want them to come around. Yet I want them to do some things. God's only going to give some of these elders so many chances before he says, this is it. You don't need your grandkids or your great grandkids around any longer. Some people don't realize that they're in a season right now where you got your people around you. But if you keep on acting mean-spirited and arrogant and thinking you know everything, and you don't want to just listen just long enough to what a young person has to say, and you keep pushing back, sooner or later you're going to push them back so far to the point where they're not going to come around. They're not going to bring their kids around. And you're going to be that grumpy old man or woman in some home somewhere or in your own home, withering away, wishing and hoping that somebody will come around and see about you. And I'll tell you that I serve the kind of God that when he shows us what people are really made of, he does not keep us around them just because of titles. I can't stress that enough. God is calling people to freedom. He is breaking bondage, emotional bondage, spiritual bondage, mental bondage, physical bondage, any type of bondage, sexual bondage, because you got some of these elders who still abusing. They abuse their daughters and sons. Now they turn around and they abusing their grandchildren. And you don't suspect it if you esteem that person, love that person, or you're even fearful of that person. Because they're going to put on all sorts of fronts. This one's going to put on a nice front. This one's going to put on a front that is very strict and very scary like. And if you fall for that type of stuff, next thing you know, you falling for all of what that person is putting upon you that keeps you in bondage. And some of you are so disconnected from the Lord and what he has in store for you. That's why the mother, the father, the sister, the brother, the cousin, the auntie, and whoever else can get away with so much with you. And if you don't have anybody around you who's discerning, who can see things for what they really are, or they see things for what they really are, but you dismiss everything that they say, you're going to continue to be played by that devil that's working in and around that individual who demands respect. What have you done? But cuss and fuss and act simple, right? Some of you all saying to yourself, got the nerve to tell me to respect them. And they sitting up there being disrespectful all day and every day, calling people names, gossiping, lying, exaggerating. Being all up in people's business for all the wrong reasons, not trying to help nobody, just sitting back there like a commentator, talking about every little itty bitty ugly little thing. And so you sitting there and you're saying to yourself, well, is it even worth it? Is it even worth coming around? I mean, should I bring my kids? Should I bring my grandkids around? I mean, I'm so tired of these elders talking out of two sides of their mouth, talking about go to church. I remember this. Woo, Jesus. And that was part of the reason why I took my time about listening to people about spirituality in church, because I saw so many hypocrites, so many pretenders. Go to church. Why should I go to church? You don't even go to church. Why should I follow after the Lord when you don't even believe in the Lord? You don't believe he works in nobody's life. Because if you believed, you wouldn't be sitting up there talking about be your own man, be your own woman, do this, do that. Okay, what am I supposed to do when I'm down and out and frustrated? You just pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Well, what if I can't do that? Then what? You just pick yourself up by the bootstraps. You already said that. But what if I can't? Well, you just got to be strong. This family is strong. We are got a long history of fighting battles and doing well at them. So without God, yeah, you can do it without God. I mean, come on, don't start that religion stuff with me. Oh my goodness. So when you hear that type of stuff, that's why you don't follow after the Lord. That's why you don't feel like you need to go to that spiritual hospital called the church. Those people's crazy up in there. I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I know a lot. My family's strong. We're this, we're that. Until you get so broken that you say, you know what? I think I will take the Christians up on what they're saying, because I can't do this by myself. And these simple people in my family, they don't know too much of anything. Yeah, you need Jesus now. Or when your family that you pushed away, right? Not all of you all, but some of you all, that family that you pushed away for any number of reasons, they're not around. So you need Jesus. Forget that family mantra, that family tradition and what we stand for and how proud we are. No, I need Jesus right now, because I had to push all these knuckleheads out of my life because of this, that, and the other. So no, I need Jesus. You see, that's how some of us ended up going down that path, because we kept talking to hard-headed people who accused us of being hard-headed. Well, where do we get it from? And we kept getting around these folks that claimed that they knew so much, and then we would take their advice, and if anything, it caused more problems. And then they gave us help, but then they didn't give us enough help. And so we found ourselves having to go back to relying on this one and relying on that one. And, oh, I need this person for emotional support and this one for financial support. And meanwhile, there's the talking negatively about you and your decision making. But I learned from you, mama. I learned from you, daddy. You was relying on this one and that one, and you were doing this and you were doing that. I learned from you, grandma. I learned from you, granddad. You see, these people that are very good about giving you these long speeches, what they're not very good about is transparency. I had one of my kids say that, yeah, they was telling us a lot of stuff, but then they didn't tell us, though, about their errors, about their mistakes, about their shortcomings. Of course not. And they're not going to, because prideful people don't do that. They want you to believe themselves to be perfect, righteous, good, what have you. They never want to tell you about the mistakes or how they overcome, because for them, oh, that's too much. And they don't want to be viewed as having any type of weaknesses, and they definitely don't want to be in any type of vulnerable positions. So we protect ourselves. We don't want to tell the kids all of what we did. No, no, no. Plus, you know what kids are going to do. They're going to throw that mess back up in your face. And yeah, they will. And so what? One thing about it, you know the truth. So you can't sit up here and say, mama didn't tell you. You know the truth. You can't sit up here and say, well, my dad, he wasn't there. He couldn't tell me this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. No, he told you. He was transparent with you, you see. But once again, the conversation, the communication, whatever it is that you're giving to a young person or somebody who's not so young, but you see that they're doing some foolish things, you've got to go to the Lord, though, and ask him for the knowledge, for the wisdom, for the understanding, because a lot of times people's given knowledge and wisdom, but they're not understanding people's situation on a case by case basis. They're generalizing. They're saying, well, young people in general do this or say that, but you're going to have an exception to the rule. And so if I'm going to share something about myself, it's got to be communicated in such a way so that that young person can understand where I'm coming from. But then when they start telling me something that goes against what I'm saying, I've got to understand why. Why is it that they think this way? Why is it that they do things that way? And if I can't get that understanding from them, I need to do some research. I need to figure out what's up with this age group. What are they into nowadays? Why would he say that? What are his influences? What does he like? Maybe you got to ask more questions, you see. But if a young person, or just somebody who's not so young, if they don't respect you, chances are they saw some things or heard some things that made them feel like it's okay and it's all right to disrespect you. Case in point, one of my children said that they noticed the way a particular individual was acting toward me. Okay. And so when they had this blow up one day, they had the blow up because they felt like it was okay to pay that person back. You see how children think? So you could be in a store, right? And there's this person that comes by and they say some real nasty, disrespectful types of things. And your child is watching this and you walk away and you don't say too much of anything because you tell your child that person is mentally disturbed. And the child goes, oh, okay. They're going to be okay with that because you explained it, right? But let's say that same person shows up and they're acting up again. Okay. At some point, the child is going to say, okay, I understand that this person has a mental disturbance, but you're going to have to do something about this. Do we have to go to this store? Do we have to be around this person? Now, what some of these elders will say is, oh, you be quiet now. Don't you start that. And, you stay in a child's place and all that. No, I'm just you just be quiet. Well, why do you feel the need to have to go here as opposed to going over there? I'm trying to save some money, but you keep going through the fire with this person and they got a mental illness. I know that, blah, 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 right? You see, sometimes the elders, they're talking over the children or their own sons, daughters that have sons and daughters. They're talking over them because they refuse to change. Because they're being called out on some things or they're being questioned. And rather than looking at it as simple conversations, one person trying to understand another person, what have you, trying to help them out, give them some advice. They look at that, all of that as disrespect. That's ignorance. Okay. And chances are they learned it from their ignorant grandparents and parents and so forth. Because see, uneducated folk is still among us, and uneducated folk is still putting their ignorant teachings onto folk. Okay. It don't matter if the son or the daughter is 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 plus years old. They still wanting to share some of that old mentality, old tradition, stuff that has long been proven a myth or a stereotype or a racial bias. They're still putting that out there in the atmosphere. And that's why, for me, it's very surprising to me when I hear a young person talking in a way that sounds like 1960s, 50s, or a person who's not so young, but they didn't grow up in a time that their parents did, but yet they're talking as if they had. Okay. And the thing is that their experience is not your experience, and their issues are not your issues. If he grew up during a time where he had to walk, that father, grandfather, great grandfather had to walk through the back door that said colored only. That was his fight. That was his experience. But what happens is sometimes people don't separate their experiences from the current reality. That is not your grandson or great grandson's experience. So why would you put that type of anger that you had back then onto him? You know how them you know what's are, and they'll have like these derogatory names for white people. Okay. Same thing with the white folks who will talk to their kids about any number of issues that was passed on by the greats, the great grands. Okay. And that was their reality back then, but that's not the reality now. I don't want you messing with those people. Don't get involved in a relationship with those people. I don't want to see you marrying, engaged, proposed to, nothing. Okay, you understand? Those people are problems. And certain people in all ethnicities are problems. That's a fact. You just got to be able to pick who is educated, who comes from a decent background, and all of that. Okay? But sometimes our elders, they are so disrespectful to so many different people, genders, different genders, ethnicities, you name it, cultures, creeds, that if you're not discerning, you will pick up on that, and then you'll start teaching your children the same things. Oh, we don't mess with those folks. Well, why? Well, because this, that, and the other. Well, that's not a good enough reason. Don't you disrespect me. But I was just saying, don't you disrespect me. That's not disrespect when a child is saying, listen, we are not in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Okay? We are in a different time period, and we don't talk like that, Dad, about women. We don't talk like that, Mom, about that particular ethnicity. You see? So people call some things disrespectful when in fact they're not disrespectful. It's once again, God is using some people to call some folks out on their ignorant thinking, on their disrespectful speech. And what folks don't like is to be called out on some things. That's why in the past I've gotten the comments that I've gotten, and the thumbs downs and everything else, as I mentioned earlier, because people don't like the truth. And if you speak too much truth, they start to mark you, because that flesh rises up in them, overrides the spirit, or they don't even have the Holy Spirit to begin with. And so they start fighting with you, and they start looking for issues with you. They start nitpicking. And meanwhile, it's God that is using the messenger to say, you got to stop this disrespect. You got to stop this ignorance. Or maybe you're not the one doing these things, but you got to stop being around those who are. Take a sabbatical, take a break. You're starting to talk like them. You're starting to act like them. I brought you out of that bondage, the Lord says. I didn't tell you to go back to racial prejudice and superiority complexes. I didn't tell you to go back to stereotypical thinking. I didn't tell you to go back to all those things that I pulled you up out of. I didn't tell you to do that. But you're allowing these people to influence you in such a way that that's just what you're doing. You're going back to the cult and the cult-like mentality. You're going back to the racial pride and prejudice and all of this other stuff. You're going back to, gender inequality types of tactics and thinking. Stop it. And some of us, we have experienced freedom because we finally gave up that ignorant family traditional way of thinking. We finally, Jesus, hallelujah, we finally got rid of some of that ignorance, right? That ignorance that we grew up with, that we saw, that we questioned, and they told us stay in a child's place and don't ask us this any longer. And here you go. And why are you over there in grown folk business? And I'm just trying to figure y'all out because something is not right. Right? As children, we looked around and we said, something's going on here. I don't know what this is, but this isn't right. And you got abused, some of you all, because you questioned, because you resisted, because you said, I'm not going to be that one. You messed with, Tommy, Tina, Harry, and everybody else, but you ain't going to mess with me. I'm going to fight back. And they never liked you. And they always had a problem with you, right? Because you stood up, because you held your ground. And the very thing that they did with their parents, they don't like you doing it with them. But God, he allows some of this stuff to happen because sometimes the only way that people going to see just how wrong they are, especially self-righteous people, is that they got to have the same things done to them. They were disrespectful and acting rude and ignorant and everything else. And so then they end up having children that do the same thing. And then you got those who falsely accuse folks of disrespect and ignorance when in fact, that's not what's going on. They just don't like the fact that they're being preached to and they're being exposed on their lies and their ignorant thinking and everything else. So this is one of those messages that, yes, you sit back and you ponder a bit and think about, okay, am I doing some things that's influencing people negatively? Am I keeping up some ignorant, disrespectful behavior that I learned from my elders? I need to stop that. And I need your help, Jesus. And then for some of you all who you're not exhibiting this sort of thing, but you're around people who are like this, you don't want to keep picking up on all of their behaviors to the point where the enemy puts you on a similar path later on in life. And now you're that grumpy old man, grumpy old woman sitting up there in your house talking about how your kids is this and that and the other. And that's not going to get them to come over any sooner. And that's not going to get them to want to be close to you. And some used to be close, but they're not anymore because they got so tired of fighting with moms on lies, on exaggerations, and dads on their pimp mentality and player type of behavior. They got sick and tired of that foolishness. And the very things that some of us have accused people of, God will take that mirror and show us, well, look at you. And I know it's a cutting truth. I've had tears in my eyes. I've had moments where I had to sit my own self down. And I had to deal with some real issues. And some of you all who have known me for quite some time, you know that God, he doesn't play with me and I don't play with God. The God I serve is real. He is as real as you looking at your hands right now. He is real. And until one has a healthy fear of the Lord, a reverence for him, and refuses to be ignorant and allow the Lord to just have that relationship, he or she is going to still be caught up in that disrespectful, ignorant type of mindset. You got to respect the one true God. If you're looking to be respected, respect him first, he says. If you don't want to be accused of being ignorant or acting in ignorant ways or being around ignorant folk, then listen to him. Wisdom is all through the Bible. You could start with Proverbs. So I thank you once again, as always, for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen. You've been listening to YouTube, NM Enterprise 7. Please do check the description box for anything that might be of interest. And if you haven't given, we do welcome donations, and thank you in advance. Once again, to God be the glory.